You're listening to the To Write Love on Our Arms podcast, a show about mental health and the things that make us human.
Here we are at our last episode of season 5 of the To Write Love on Our Arms podcast. And we're going out with a bang here. We are thrilled to be joined by multi-platinum artist Andy Grammer. Andy is an artist who continues to engage, energize, and empower audiences with stomping, stadium-sized pop anthems that are meant to be shared at full volume. His observations and affirmations pick people back up when they need it, affirm their potential, and encourage them to keep going. His catalog consists of numerous bona fide hits, some of which I'm sure you were probably just singing on the radio too earlier this week, including quadruple-platinum, Honey, I'm Good. In the mix is also Keep Your Head Up, Fine by Me, Don't Give Up on Me, Fresh Eyes, and Good to Be Alive, in parentheses. Hallelujah. Yeah, Andy, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We are thrilled to be here. I guess let's start with where here is. Where are you calling in from?
Thank you so much for that intro. It's always so funny, like to have a sincere conversation with someone, and we have to do the intro so people who don't know what's going on or who know who I am, which there's many of. But it's also a very funny way to start a conversation. Is to be like, I'm awesome in all these ways. Nice to meet you. Yeah. So anyways, I'm coming at you from Los Angeles.
Excellent. Well, we're thrilled to have you, and I guess as we're saying that we're glad you're here and that we're thrilled to have you. I guess a little bit of context, a little bit of backing up. How did you get to this place? How did you first get connected to Write Love on Our Arms?
Man, I feel like we've been connected for a long time. I remember we brought some shirts out on tour. It's been like a relationship that I don't know exactly how many years, but a while now. We've been.
It's got to be over a decade, honestly. I was trying to go back to like when did I first become aware of this artist that I'm aware of on the radio, popping up into some of our email conversations, into some of our staff meetings. So man, really thank you so much for allowing us to be part of the journey.
It's been a good friendship for sure.
Right on. So, I mean, I guess hopping into the conversation, for those of you that have been tracking with the podcast this year, we've covered a ton of ground, but our hope is really just to hone in on what makes us human. There's so much about life that we don't talk about, which can be a shame because there's so much of life that is common experience, even in the hard times. And, Andy, like so many of your songs, like I mentioned in the intro, are these kind of foot stomping anthems, these things that make you excited, these things that bring a smile to your face. But at the same time, I have to believe that you are more complex than just happy Andy at all time. I guess, to what degree is it important in you and your artistry to paint a full picture of the human experience?
Yeah, I think that what I try to sing about, I call it like a grounded optimism. So to me, it is a pretty full picture. The idea of singing like keep your head up, unless that's grounded in pain, then I don't think anyone believes it. Like when I wrote that song, I wasn't singing you got to keep your head up because everything's fine. It was like, oh, I just lost my mother. I'm 25 and I need to write myself a little pick me up. So I think most of my songs are grounded in pain and the rebellion of uplifting hope, optimism in the face of things that are really shitty and difficult. That's something that I can get behind. Just kind of like, let's all be happy just because. Sure, do that too, but I don't want to sing about that. Like, it's not as interesting to me. It's funny. I know that sometimes I'm seen as like the happy guy, and the people that come to my shows and my incredible fan base, they're happy, but they're also usually using the music because they're going through something terrible. So it's this really interesting dichotomy of like, my fans are like the sweetest people that are usually going through intense stuff.
Yeah, and I don't think that's altogether unique. We're coming off of a season of super hectic travel. Just last week, our team was at 4 different events over the same weekend, and most of those revolving around music. And looking at the people that had bought tickets, the people that showed up, I imagine them fitting into one of two camps. Either, hey, this is a treat, like this is a birthday gift, this is an anniversary present, this is commemorating, an awesome moment in my life, commemorating a raise or a graduation, you name it. And then there's people that are there that are treating this as a retreat, trying to make sense of life, trying to
Mhm.
find a sense of groundedness, and maybe we can dare to hope that it could be optimistic as well. And maybe there's a third camp where it's both. That we don't always get to pick what kind of story we're waking up to, but the importance of tapping into the entire experience.
I love the relationship of musician or artist to fan, and it's a really deep one. And if you're not in it, it looks crazy to someone who's outside who doesn't get it, who doesn't understand it. Right? Like to someone who's like for me, there's plenty of styles of music that I love a lot of them, but there's ones that I just wouldn't necessarily go to because it doesn't like speak to me. And if I went to the show and I saw people crying or freaking out to something that I don't understand, like that doesn't speak to me, it looks a little bit crazy. Like that
Mm.
relationship is so great. And ultimately what it means is when someone comes to a show and they sing at the top of their lungs and they have these emotions, it means that they feel understood, or
Mm.
they feel like something about what I'm singing, and hopefully that what I'm singing is coming from my truth. They see their truth in my truth, and I've done that many times, at different shows, and that is so powerful that it creates this insane rush of feelings, and that's why concerts to me are the dream. Like that's why it's so fun. I went and
Mm.
saw Lauryn Hill at the Hollywood Bowl. For young people, go check her out, okay? Don't make me date myself. But she was the first person that I heard make integrity sound like banging and like really
Wow.
cool. And so I remember listening to that in my mom's minivan, hearing that Miseducation of Lauryn Hill record and being like, whoa, my insides are like excited. And I feel like I want to go do something like that. I know it won't sound like that, but she's making integrity sound cool. And I know how hard that is to do. And then so when she came out, she just like walks out on stage at the Hollywood Bowl. And I'm in tears. I'm flooded. I'm like, there's a person that doesn't know me, but she gets me. Something about her gets something about me. And I don't feel alone in my pursuit of different things. Or I think that's what the magic is really, music makes you not feel alone.
Mm. No, man, so much good there. You're right. Like the magic in feeling less alone, and maybe even the magic of finding different melodies to put to the words that maybe we've been able to find through some of our grief or through some of our hard times. I kind of want to take a beat and press in harder on this "keep your head up" piece. Like you said, like the value of that song comes from the realization that it's not always easy to keep your head up.
Yeah.
Where did this song and the writing of it, as far as chronology, come into play in terms of your journey with grief through losing your mother back in 2009?
Yeah. So I was street performing. I did that for about 4 years. About 2 years into that, my mom passed away from breast cancer. And it was so important for someone who's going to have a career like me. Listen, I would trade it in a second. I want my mom back. I was just in yoga today and they had the like shavasana at the end and you like get completely quiet with yourself. And I'm like, oh, I just like really miss my mother still, always.
Mm.
Um, but I was the quiet guy for 2 years, which I'm not usually the quiet guy. I'm almost annoyingly like chattery and love to be around a lot of people. And so I got a lot of empathy from the passing of my mother, of how hard life could be for other people.
Mm.
And I think that's really important if you're going to go try to cheer people up, or you're going to try to uplift people, or you're going to try to write music that points up towards the sun. Uh, Unless you have some empathy and some understanding, you're just so annoying. you know?
Hmm.
It's like really annoying if you don't have a real sense of like why someone's upset. And so for me to go through a year, 2 years, 3 years of really gaining empathy eyes of just like being destroyed and understanding that like, oh, whoa, a lot of people that I'm coming in contact with throughout my day might feel some version of this. It'll be different for them, but they feel this low.
Yeah.
And that is a starting place for uplifting music that I can get behind. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's just that it's like if you're gonna sing "Keep Your Head Up," you better mean it, or else it's really cheesy. You know, you sit down and you play a major chord, and it's cheesier than if you play a minor chord. So if you're
Mhm.
gonna be like messing around with major chords, you better be good at it. Number one, and you better have a reason why. You know.
Oh, that's so good. And I guess, kind of in that, you talked about this gaining empathy eyes. What a beautiful turn of phrase that is. And y- it's clear that, 2009 was not the first and not the last heartache that you've had. You've also mentioned that mental health really came to the forefront just in the past couple of years in the wake of the pandemic. Can you tell us about how those couple years really unfolded and seasoned your sense of experience and empathy as it relates to mental health challenges?
I think the pandemic did this for a lot of us. For me specifically, when you hit stop on everything, and I was forced to just be with myself, it was excruciating. You know, up until that point, there was a lot of go, 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 a lot of like consistent running, literally just like physically running from plane to plane, country to country, like running at a high clip. There was a lot of my self worth being based on achievement. Um, and so then when you hit stop on that, like a hard stop on that, I was faced with just being quiet with myself, and I did not like it. It felt like a monkey in a cage at all times, rattling, like, "Let me get at it." It was, like, really brutal for me, uh, to not be able to go do what I do, but not what I could sense was it wasn't just, "Oh, you're sad because you don't get to go play shows." It was like, "You're having an internal crisis about what your position is and who you are and what you do throughout your day," and it was not good up there, and it got so bad that this is what I think we talk a lot. I'm starting to get louder about it. Is it doesn't have to get that bad for you to take some steps towards your mental health. You know,
Mm.
to see that as a priority. Um, I never heard it once growing up, and I've heard it more. So there's been work done, which is really cool. But still, even with that, there was a sense of like, oh, if I get into therapy, if I talk to someone about this, I'm kind of giving in to something, or I'm admitting that I'm not whole, or
Yeah.
some bullshit that is just obnoxious. Yeah.
Well, I love that your sense of prescribing to our listeners, like it don't have to get unbearable before you ask for help. Like
Yeah.
help does exist, and I can hear that comes from your own battle, not just your internal crisis, but also this weird, really insidious voice of stigma that's standing in the way. I'm wondering, what was the turning point? Maybe it wasn't just one flashbulb moment, but what were the voices? What was the journey like for you to challenge that stigma? To not just let that sense of, okay, I understand life is hard right now, but do I really need help? Like where did it switch into? Yeah, I think I really could benefit from help.
I think it's just for me, it was a long pandemic. So after a year and a half of being so off of what I understood my center to be, you know, like I'm a bubbly, uplifting. That's where I like to be at. And without a lot of situations where that was occurring, it was just me with myself, and I was like not happy. So, and I couldn't pretend that I was happy. There weren't ultimately, I can't say that I was always that I'm like bubbly might be wrong. There were no distractions. The distractions were gone. And I could really see that like, whoa, I'm not doing so hot. And I can't. I literally there's no distractions that I can use that work for me here. So I'm currently just sitting in mental pain, and I'd
Hmm.
rather not be. And so I think that's what this is. I think that's what early stages of depression, or I think this is what it is. And so I reached out and got a therapist, and it's been really wonderful. It's been really, really wonderful. You have to like create space to do things in your life. If I want to write songs, and they don't just like roll out, I got to like set a time on the calendar to go write a song. I have to like get with somebody else sometimes if I feel like I'm not going to do it enough by myself. Then we set a session for me to go write. I'm really into creating spaces in your life to get the things that you want. And so then it became pretty clear, like, well, I need to make some time for this in my life.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned seeing a therapist, but I struggle to imagine that that was, a direct A to B journey of, okay, this hurts. I will see my first therapist tomorrow. Like, what did it look like? Were there intermediary voices along the way that encouraged this?
My manager is he's been going to therapy for a while, and he's like a close friend that I was able to chat with, and he recommended a good therapist that I use to this day still. And then the process of going through therapy was like letting go of, getting into I like figuring out how to even do it. It's a strange situation to just share without trying to be charming to the person or to care what it's like a whole thing that you got to work
I,
out. Yeah.
I can only imagine as someone whose business card says entertainer, right? Like it is your job to be charming. It is your job to be relatable, and it certainly helps, your bottom line if when you leave an encounter, someone feels better than when you first interacted with them. Did it feel like the the chairs were kind of the tables were flipped that you were sitting for the first time in the chair of someone that needed to be helped as opposed to doing the helping? I mean, I guess what comes to my mind is so many people say, "Oh, music is my therapy. Shows are my therapy." And you're saying, "Well, like that makes me the therapist at times." And
A lot of
yeah.
humility in the last from the pandemic to now that I've hopefully gained. Uh, just I think a lot of me personally, I think we all have things that how we see ourselves, and then we have things that we still are that we choose not to look at. It's like we cook our own books internally.
Hmm.
And I think sometimes it's really nice to have someone help you get all that on the same page, and to get your full true self onto one sheet here. Not I'm just using the analogy. That comes with humility because nobody wants to admit that they have these flaws. It's easier to just not look at them, and that's where I think a lot of us go to distractions because there's something inside that doesn't quite feel right.
How different does the posture look like? Thinking back to your first minute of your first counseling session, your first seconds of therapy, how different does that look now, years into this journey of refinding yourself?
I think it just looks there's like a lot more compassion for myself. There's a lot less black and white thinking, a lot less like, I'm a good person or I'm a bad person. There's a lot more gray in the middle and a lot more compassion and self-love in my everyday life, um,
Mm.
that, can hold some complex ideas at once, you know?
Speaking of complex ideas, we are in an age where music is coming back in very visible and frenetic pace. I remember when festivals first started coming back and venues started opening, and all of a sudden there was a shortage of sound equipment. There was a shortage of tour buses and people running, back of house spaces and all
Yeah.
of that. What was it like to re-enter this world, seemingly, kind of overnight? Like we got into isolation overnight, and a
Yeah.
lot of people got to ramp up to their job, through remote work. But with a touring musician, it was all right. We're back. Like, what was that whiplash like?
Yeah, that was pretty wild. I was just thinking in my head something that I want to share to anybody listening, which had a huge effect on me. Someone told me one time that if you judge yourself for seeking help, then when you are helping someone else, you are judging them.
Mm.
Because what you're saying is that help is worthy of judgment. And I love to help people. Like, I love it. It's one of my favorites. To be of service to someone is like, oh my God, that usually makes me so happy. And to think that I was judging myself for that was another turning point for me. It was like, oh man, I need to get in the game here. I can't just be one-sided conversations. There's got to be like a letting go that that I know. If you ask me point blank, are you above other people? I'm like, oh my God, I'm definitely not above other people. But that's what you're saying when you say I don't need help. Anyways,
Mm.
on to your question of getting back into music. It was actually weirdly it was very strange because we went back in a little bit early, so we were still like bubbled up on the tour bus, but we were just so happy to be able to get out of the house at all that it was still kind of incredible. Yeah.
So what did it look like now getting into the rhythm of therapy and then refinding this rhythm of frenetic tour days and travel and press and PR and everything that does not include being on the stage singing and playing guitar?
Yeah.
Um,
It's really simple. It's not like I don't know, it doesn't feel like rocket science. It's like, hey, if you have self-love, then we just had a call the other day where we looked at like my schedule with my incredible managers and we're like, "Oh, if I do all these things, I'm going to be unhappy." There's too many things here. There's not enough sleep here. This is like how it's going to go. Like those aren't conversations necessarily that I would take seriously before. And I just have a little more self-love, a little more self-compassion, a little more understanding that it's not rocket science. And if you just leave it up to, if you're not setting up, you're setting yourself up for success with thoughts to your mental health, not just like, oh, can I do that physically? Could I make
yeah.
it to all those cities? Like I probably could, but I know how that will make me feel. So now a priority is like, I don't want to feel bad. So now it's like a little bit more integrated into the way that we do stuff. But until you are able to acknowledge yourself fully, then you just do a lot of like, I can take it. I got this. Don't sweat. Like there's got to be a balance between hard work and that stuff. Yeah.
Dude, you are totally reading my mail.
Yeah.
Like I feel very
The hard
seen
one.
in this moment of yeah, like I feel like that idea of self-care, like my self-care's most consistent sparring partner is a fear of missing out. And it's not even like for myself, for my own edification, but like man, like if I don't make it to this city, to this date, to if I don't hop on this plane in order to get to this event, like what are the stories I'm missing out on? Like who are the people that I could
Mm.
encourage? Who are the people that I need to give this resource material out to? And yeah, it's like man, like that towing that line of ambition and and just letting it go. Like
Dude, very, very intense tightrope walk because if you don't have ambition, well, people like you're just worried that you're not going to get up and go do it. You need enough gas to like get you going to do stuff. Um, the problem is that sometimes that thing can also be secretly driven by trying to get validation outside of yourself,
mm,
right? So like if I need to go do this for these people, right? Like for these other people, which oh my God, you do, you totally do. But if you're not worried about yourself, I love I've been on 2 tours this year called The Art of Joy Part 1 and 2. And I dug deep into joy. That word just like kept swelling around me when I was depressed. Like it makes sense. And my favorite definition of joy is gladness not based on circumstance.
mm,
So if it's going to not be based on circumstance, that means that it is coming from you. So then I see that and I go like, "Whoa, I need to get better at having gladness not based on circumstance." A lot of my gladness comes from it's clearly shown from the pandemic. If you change my circumstance, I am not cool. I'm not good in the current form. If you change my circumstance this hard, I'm not glad. There's no gladness around me. I'm just freaking depressed and upset. And that was a really cool wake up call to go like, "Oh, I'm capable. Like I can do this. I can." It's like interesting, invisible, weird internal work to try to figure that out. And I'm not there, but I'm taking steps.
This conversation has been so fun because, in part, you were doing a master class on emotional vocabulary, and
Mm.
taking words that we had learned at an early age. I mean, we learned the word joy by the time we're walking, right? And you're laying out this journey that's decades in process of what does it mean.
When you hear the word joy, if you're honest with yourself, what does that make you think of? Does it make you think of like an accomplishment? Does it make you think of a place that you're at? Does it make you think of a person that comes into your situation that makes you so happy? Is your first thought me with myself, just because I've figured myself out. I've learned myself well enough to be joyful. That's a deeper level that
Hmm.
I don't know if I get there without getting completely demolished by a pandemic. I honestly, I'm not sure. Like, that was such a unique historical event that, like, at the current stage of my life, there was so many places to go and to create situations where I would feel happy, But joy, was it coming from me? I don't know unless you take it all away, whether I'm forced to figure that out. So I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for it.
Yeah. Oh, I guess keeping with the theme of changing context and learning deeper layers to words, and yeah, just kind of what is the meaning of all of this? Pick what your this is. Have have songs that you've sung for decades now, do they sound different to you? Like same words, same chord progression, same everything, but the context has changed. I guess my question is, have you felt that change? What's changed the most? Do you have songs that you don't want to sing anymore? And do you
Sure.
have songs that you can't wait to get to because there's this nugget of depth that you never knew was there?
To me, I love singing about the soul. And I even get worried saying that because there's no manipulation. There's no attempt at like trying to get you to be like I just me personally, going back to joy, right? What psychs me up is singing about our journey here and how like all the soul, basically. So I then songs that don't have that in them in some form are not my favorites as we move forward, you know? And there can be soul in literally in, like, so many different things, like, it can be your first love, there's a lot of beauty in that. There can be like, as long as there's something in there that feels like, connected, I think as an artist, it's really hard. You don't know that when you start. You don't know what it is that you wanna write about. Maybe some do, I didn't. I'm hacking away on 3rd Street Promenade going like, "Is this what it is?
Hmm.
Or is this what it is? Or is this maybe what it is?" And there's a fearlessness that has to come, uh, and so, yeah, of course, I think every artist has if you've been prolific enough, you have ones that you look back at and you go like, "Oh, I mean, I know where I was and why I made that choice, but that one doesn't get me psyched right now. This one super does." And that's what's so incredible about music is that everybody wants to come hear your life's work every night, like the best of everything that you've created over the last 10 years. They want just those songs, which I think
Hmm.
is almost kind of a unique art form. I've been thinking about this a lot. Like if you're an actor, it's like, nope, show up and this is a new movie. We're doing this now. We're not doing callbacks to like what crushed 5 years ago. But in music is very unique that every night everybody wants to hear the best of everything you've ever done. It's cool.
That's so wild. Yeah, like music is, yeah, you're
They
so
would be
right.
so
Like
upset if you don't play Keep Your Head Up, which I wrote so long ago, but everybody would be like, what the hell, dude? Yeah.
yeah, there's this currency and consistency when it comes to music.
I've always been lucky enough to have a good amount of myself in my music. I think hopefully it's gotten better and better and they're shared more and more and more, kind of like a relationship with a friend. Like you first meet them and fireworks happen and you're like super friends and it's cool. And then hopefully as you get to know them for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7, 10, you start to feel comfortable to share more and more and more and more
Mm.
and deeper in all the sides of yourself.
Have you been able to kind of express that sense of sharing and vulnerability to your other to other tour mates, to other folks that you write music with, that you collaborate with? How
Right.
has your journey into self care and therapy and seeking, positive mental health well-being, how has that affected or opened up lanes of communication with your effectively coworkers in the field of
Yeah.
music?
It's really sweet, the music I think is what did it. So, like, going through therapy, then it was like, oh, then I have a song. I start my show with a spoken word poem that goes into a song called "Damn It Feels Good to Be Me."
Mm.
And then there's a song in the show called "Love Myself" and "Joy." And so going through doing self work has undeniably spilled into my music, which then spills into the conversation with me and my fans and my band and everybody. Um, yeah. And the
That's
deeper you
awesome.
go with yourself, hopefully, the more universal you become to other people. That's the hope, you know?
That's something that strikes me as beautiful, and I don't know if in an age that we've had to live through a pandemic, in an age that I'm living through a hurricane, like it really puts things in perspective. Like if it's not beautiful, how worthy of my time is it? And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy to find that beauty, but
Yeah.
shouldn't that be what's like kind of driving what we're looking for?
I think beauty is such a wide spectrum. So I think if you're creating something or you're a creator, it's more like, authenticity. Like, the
Mm,
more authentic you are, if you being completely authentic is, like, so silly and stupid, but it's true, then I want that. If
yeah.
it's you like, th the the scariest thing is when we are dimming our own light down to try to fit into a situation, especially in art, that just makes the art terrible. Just
Mm,
makes it not good. And, something about going through therapy and building up my own self-worth coming from me as opposed to external things has allowed me to care less, like, sincerely care less how I'm perceived, which is wonderful. That's so good
mm.
for art. Oh my god. Like, I should walking out on stage, I'm like, "This is what I am, and I hope that you enjoy this, and oh my god, it would make me so happy if you like it. If you don't, like, that's okay." Like, we're all gonna be okay, you know? That's what we want, I think, from our artists, is like, "I'm here to do this, and I hope you enjoy it," you know?
Yeah, man, that's so good. With such an aspiration, you know, a, I hate to keep coming back to it, but beautiful aspiration that is like just the desire to be authentic, and the freedom to not care if it's not fully received because it was coming from a place that you accepted,
Yeah.
and the importance of that. I don't imagine that revelation came solely through work and music. So what are the other kind of threads in your life that help you express your best self or help you find elements of your best self?
Mm. It's funny, the biggest maybe mine's unique, I don't think it is, but the actual act of going to therapy and then writing music about it, and then being backstage knowing that I have to go sing about it to start a show was, like, such an interesting practice. I did, 61 tour shows this year, and every night started with this poem of, like, "This is where I'm at. This is who I am. If you wanna" basically, if the door is over there, if you're not into it. I've been beat down so bad that I can't pretend to be anything else than where I am in this exact moment, and that has been almost like a spiritual practice every night to just share where you're at. And I just had a really interesting thing where I went and played for a bunch of people. And I was in a situation where you recognize everybody in the room.
Hmm.
And some people like it, and some people do not like it. And if you catch me 10 years earlier, I might start on stage going like, "Oh, what can I do that will, like, get everyone in here? Like, what do they want? What will work for them?" And in essence, like, veering off what I think I'm supposed to do. And after a year of doing shows, connecting to, like, joy comes from me. It's like comes from in here, and I can't get my validation from you. So it has to come from me. So I'm going to just hold space for half of you to freaking love this and hold space for half of you to detest this and maybe get up and leave. And I'm cool. Like, I'm actually fine. And I think that's what people can feel. And this is what, uh, to me, actually has a lot to do with mental health. Of like, I'm just once you get past the worry of judging, especially judging yourself, there's like a lot of open space to play with here. You know?
Other words that have really stuck out to me during this conversation. I love this idea of making and holding space.
Yeah,
Even that last word that you said of play, and just obviously you can draw the line, the metaphorical lines between, yeah, you play music, but it's also your career. It doesn't feel like a playground, or maybe it does again now.
yeah.
But there was certainly, I reckon, this gap between when you were busking on Promenade, um, and where we are now. And I'm hearing that those spots are closer today than perhaps they've been ever. Just playing, trying to find this joy, trying and tapping into that, and realizing, like, you could be busking, and maybe you make $100 that day. Hell yeah, this is validation. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
Yes.
And somewhere in the middle, we lose it. We Yeah.
I just want to speak too as well to like the word that I've been sitting a lot with is authenticity.
Hmm.
When you are truly authentic, you are giving other people permission to be authentic. That's what that's the gift of authenticity. Is like when I am truly my full self, just by being around me, or if it's you that's doing it, you are giving me permission to go like, oh, cool, maybe I could just be myself. And I think that with the stigma around therapy, there's a huge hurdle because a huge part of myself I'm not allowed to talk about or to share, or this ugly stuff that I keep away. And there's just real freedom to seeing it all and accepting yourself for where you're at. It's not the incredible story that you tell yourself all the time. But that the fact that it's not that is what creates so much internal tension, because you're like, I'm supposed to be this thing, and then I take actions that are this thing, and now right? And there's a lot more self-compassion, and there's a way to hold it all and to really learn yourself. And there's a real power in it that I would cheer anyone on who is going through that struggle right now. Start learning yourself, and one of the easiest ways to learn yourself is to sit with a therapist and get into it.
Well, on my note sheet is the question: what would you say to someone who's struggling right now? And I think you just said it. I
Mm.
think you just knocked it out of the park. I guess, to that end, um, it's now open mic time for Andy Grammer. Anything that we haven't touched on, that you really wish that you could have expressed, or um, I don't
I
know,
think
man. This has covered so much.
if you're listening and you're feeling low and you haven't quite taken the step to get into therapy or to get into a 12-step program, which are incredible, or some sort of a group thing, um, you are going to be with yourself for the rest of your life. So it's kind of the most important relationship you got.
Mm.
And it is unbelievable to me how little context I had on myself before I kind of like imploded during this pandemic. And I'm just so grateful to take it seriously, to learn my habits, my flaws, my personal defects, my what I'm really good at. We don't think about it. We're like, if you don't create the space for it, um, you will just continue going forward, sometimes in pain. And if part of what's holding you back is some bullshit stigma that you are weak or not as worthy or not as good if you have these things. Newsflash, everybody's got this stuff. So let's blow the door off that and just start learning ourselves and learning how to be happy from ourselves to get to the good joy stuff. I don't know. Is this sounding
So
preachy? I don't want to be preachy.
no, it's. I mean,
Yeah,
I think wise words can be taken any number of ways, and
totally.
what can feel like preaching today can certainly feel like a lifeline down the road. Who are you listening to? Who are some artists that you feel when your authenticity gas tank is starting to run low? What are Who are the voices? What are the songs that reground you, that bring you back, that yeah, the
Mm.
soundtrack to your authenticity?
Oh, that's really good. There's a dude that I've been listening to a lot. I gotta make sure I get his name right. I think it's Leif. Leif Volbeck is really good. He's got a couple songs that like smash. There's I'm really into it's the dude who sings Alexi Murdoch. I'm into
Mm.
like a lot of like guitar kind of like chill stuff at the moment.
What was his
As
hit
yeah,
years ago? Orange Sky.
Orange Sky is so good.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so good.
And then I listen to a lot of like, I'm a Baha'i, so there's a spiritual teacher. I read a bunch of Abdul Baha's writings. There's an incredible teacher, Thich Nhat Hanh. All of his books are on audiobook. That dude centers me like nobody else. Yeah, trying to get better at meditating. Um, Again, if you don't take steps and create space in your life for it, it just won't happen. That's been my experience. So step one is to make it a priority. That like, oh, the way that I feel up here, why wouldn't that be a priority? What does it say about myself that I can't make that a priority? So that's step one, I'd say.
I love it. And feel free to join in, dear listeners, whenever it's time to take that first step. Know that
Yes,
you're traveling in good company. Andy, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your friendship over the years. Thank
yes,
you for your music that is going to continue to, I think, hit all your goals of uplifting and empowering and encouraging. And well, friend, I can't wait for the next opportunity that our paths can cross.